guys, welcome to the channel. Now if you're new here, basically this channel is based off of my Silverado. It's been my daily driver for the past 8 years, and I did a cam swap 6 years ago. So today I'm going to be giving you a review on the truck 6 years after cam swapping it and whether it's worth it or not. So as the truck sits, I have a 220R cam from Texas Speed and Performance. I also have a 3600 stall converter from Circle D. I have long tube headers from Texas Speed and Performance. Limited slip diff in the back. It's tuned, cold air. That's basically it. There's no head work. The heads I got are the 243 heads, so they flow pretty well the way they are. So going back before the way the truck sits at the moment, for a while, maybe about a year and a half, I only had just the cam swap, and also I added the long tube headers. And that was the only thing I did to the truck, other than obviously the cold air intake that was on it from the previous owner. And the truck was definitely quicker, just overall. I would say it was quicker from a roll. I mean, I raced in Mexico, a few other stock trucks and whatever, even another cam's truck. And I mean, the truck's quick for what it is. It's just the cam it has, it says you don't need an aftermarket converter, but what I found with my truck in particular, because it's so heavy, that you do need a aftermarket converter. Even a 26 to 2800 stall converter isn't necessarily enough to get it off the line like you want it to. So the 34 is pretty good. If you're just two-wheel drive, I would recommend doing a lower stall, just because traction is going to be your issue. Since I have four-wheel drive, it's not an issue, so higher the stall, the better. You kind of want your stall to where it starts basically at the bottom of your power band, so you're always in it. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail on this. I might just make another video on it. Also, too, I just need to research more on the topic before I start talking about it. But basically, if you're going to do a cam swap for your daily driver, do not get the biggest and baddest cam there is. But basically, the higher the lift the cam, the more maintenance you're going to have to do with your valve train. It puts more stress on the valve train. So the lower the lift, you may not make as much power, but if you're missing out on 15-20 horsepower versus having to go and change out your valve springs every 15 to 20,000 miles, you know, is it worth it? It's your daily driver. I mean, there's other power adders you can do, so the biggest cam probably isn't gonna be the best for you. You can do a higher duration with the valve overlap, and that's going to make it chop really nice, but you do not need high lift to make your engine chop. It's just the overlap, that's all it is. So definitely with your daily driver, the bigger cam is not always going to be the best. There's a lot of new cams coming out with really nice specs to where it keeps your torque or even increases your torque low end and produces a pretty good top end. So I don't know what they're doing to these things, but there's definitely good ones on the market. Like Brian Tooley has a good truck cam. Same thing with Texas Speed. They're all getting good ones out there. So I've been driving the truck as it sits right now for the past 2 years. So as it sits, the drivability it's okay. So what I mean by okay is it drives fine. There's no hassles or anything throughout the day or when I'm driving. There's just a couple things you got to keep an eye on. When it's really hot and you're in traffic with that high stall converter, it does tend to get the transmission really hot when you do a lot of stop and go. I do have a trans cooler, but it might not be big enough. I mean, it's sufficient, but definitely if you're towing anything or just in stop and go traffic on a hot summer day that's like 100 degrees, the temps definitely get up there, like touching 200, which I typically like to stay under 180 just for the longevity of the transmission. But with that high stall converter, it definitely likes to cook the oil in the transmission. So yeah, a cooler is definitely needed. Other than that, it likes to flash up to 3,000 RPM whenever you're driving, so it sounds like you're going fast, but then you look at yourself and you're only going 20 miles an hour. That's the downside. A lot of people think you're doing that on purpose or trying to show off or whatever. But in reality, I mean, with that stall converter, it's going to flash up like that. It's going to rev. And if you have a loud exhaust, it's really going to get attention. So if you don't like that, definitely just get a lower stall converter or just a quieter exhaust. With everything done to the truck, so with the cam headers and stall converter, this is a crew cab 4x4. The truck 0 to 60 is 5.4 seconds. On a hot summer day, when my tune was kind of not doing the best, my air fuels were off a little bit, my timing was pretty mild, it would do like 6.1 seconds in the 0 to 60 on a summer day. But yeah, on a normal winter day, it'll do 5.4. It'll definitely put you in your seat for a little bit. So I would say that's a pretty big jump from what it was stock, which is around 8.5 seconds, which is pretty slow in today's standards. The trucks these days, like the 2022s, 2023s, the average truck on those is 5.4 seconds too on the 0 to 60. So, I mean, for being a 10-year-old truck, basically, it keeps up with the new truck, so I'm not too worried about it. Another thing too that you got to think about is when you get the long tube headers, if you don't ceramic coat them, you're gonna have to either wrap them or put some sort of heat shield on them. If not, over the years, your plastics and your rubbers and stuff in your engine compartment is gonna become brittle and start breaking away. You're gonna have some vacuum leaks. If you have a passion for working on your car and just making horsepower or doing modifications, by all means. I mean, you're gonna have some downtime when you're working on it. It definitely took it took me a week to do the cam swap, but I was working, so I can only work on it an hour or two a day. But I mean, you could get it done on a weekend if you know what you're doing, if you have all the right parts. You could pay a shop to do it. It's gonna be quite a bit more expensive, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you could just definitely get a shop to do it for you. They probably have a pretty quick turnaround time, and they're more than likely not going to mess anything up if it's a reputable place. But if you're not prepared to spend the money on broken parts or supporting mods or whatever, because I've had a torque converter break on me, I've had my rear end break on me. I mean, it's never good timing. The truck was down for a day or two or a week, but I mean, keep it stock if you don't want things to break. But overall, I mean, the reliability of the whole truck has been very good. Since doing the cam swap, I have 90,000 miles on it. I should probably open up the valve covers just to take a look at the rocker arms and the springs and the valves, just to make sure everything's looking all right. I know with higher lift cams that 90,000 miles is quite a bit before replacing anything, but I guess that's a whole nother video. So I mean, overall, I'd recommend it. Obviously, I don't get the best gas mileage, but it's miles per gallon these days, especially since gas prices are right now. So, but if you have any questions about how the torque converter drives, I do have a video on that and more in depth of what the torque converter does. And I also have other videos as far as the 0 to 60 times before and after these certain supporting mods with the cam swap. So if you're interested in those, I'll put that at the end screen. And for now, I'll see y'all next video.